Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to Irish Craic, a look at the TV series Dublin Murders by an American and an Aussie. Today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 6, where things continue to not look good for our heroes, the detectives from the Dublin Murder Squad, Cassie and Rob. With me, as always, is somebody who drinks as much poisoned wine as is needed. It's Bagga. Bagga, how you doing?
Good, Bubba. How you going?
I'm doing well.
It's also not looking good for our boy Sam. He's having a bad TV show. TV series, I should say.
He is. Nothing goes right for Sam. Our detectives dunking on themselves sometimes. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. He doesn't need his own story. He's already had his.
Well, okay, Bagga, let's get to it. This is episode 6. There are only 2 more episodes left. How is this possible in the first season? What is your ranking out of 10 for episode 6 of Dublin Murders?
Unfortunately, I've only given this 6 triple Fs.
Triple Fs?
Yep. Bad Father Frankie. He has a T-shirt with the number 1 father, I think, written on, given to him by his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I was very disappointed with the episode, mainly because I wanted more about Rob and that story, and I found the story about Lexie or Cassie boring or dull because we don't know the 4 people that she's with.
That's right.
And I don't particularly care for them, and it's obviously one or more of them that killed the original Lexie, and we'll talk about that later, but every time that story came up, I was just saying, get back to Rob. I want to see what's happening with Rob. Not only Rob, I want to see what's happening with Quigley and Kelly and all that lot, and see what's happening. To me, that's the important story. It's almost like this Lexie story, which I know was book 2, has just been sort of shoved in, not as filler, but just as an extra red flag or something. I'm not sure, but I didn't really care for it at all. I wanted to get back to Rob and the main story.
Well, I am not going to go quite as low as you, Bagga, but I am only going to give this one 7, what I like to call double C's out of 10.
Double C's?
Well, double C is when your detective Cassie is careless. We've got a careless Cassie. This whole plan is ridiculous. I'm with Chief Varys, as we like to call him on this podcast. I'm with Chief Varys. Yeah. This plan by Frank is ridiculous. How did she really think she was going to be able to go undercover? Okay, the victim, the dead Lexie, seemed to be an identical twin of hers. But she knew nothing. She didn't know anything. Who's to say her voice sounded the same? It felt like a ridiculous plot. Cassie was way too careless. Should have been saying the most minimal amount of words possible to give up the ghost. And I guess, like you, the thing about this second case, and so, listeners, this is based on 2 novels, the In the Woods novel and the novel The Likeness by Tana French. I have not read the second novel, The Likeness, but it feels like, here we are, episode 6. The season is about to end. I feel like we know a lot of the characters well, even if we haven't spent much time with them in the Woods storyline. Sandra Scully, who we really have not spent much time with as viewers, but I feel like I really have a good handle on her and who she is. Yep. Here we're having to meet these 3 roommates of the imaginary Lexie, and I guess I kind of have some broad strokes about them, but I don't know them too well. And they end the episode doing something that either points to they're guilty and or points that they're evil, either way, in that they poison Cassie. Now, of course, maybe I could see a way where they aren't guilty of killing the original Lexie, because if you had somebody start impersonating your good friend and move into your house and impersonate your good friend, you would be freaked out by them. I'm not sure I would resort to poisoning, but it would be freaking me out. And so I know people who love this second novel. I've had listeners write to me and tell me how much they love The Likeness as a novel. It does feel like we have been thrown into a storyline without a really good sense of who these characters are. Bag, I'm going to come to you. Tell me some characteristics of Abby, the female roommate here in this house that Cassie is undercover with. Tell me anything about her.
All I can tell is that she seems like she might have had a connection with the original Lexie, because they're talking about Lexie being pregnant and the boys don't know.
Right.
But if she knew that, I'm sure she'd be able to spot that wasn't the original Lexie.
I was going to say that I know the original Abby. There's theoretically only one Abby, but I know that Abby, based on what I've seen, likes Daniel, seemingly the leader of this group of 4 kids who lived in this house. 4 students, I should say. They don't look like kids to me. And to be honest, of them all, she's the one that raises my most red flags because she seems the friendliest. And if she was really jealous of Lexie being pregnant by her boyfriend Daniel, what she might have assumed, she might have killed somebody over that. But once again, there isn't enough meat on the bone for me really to be able to pick apart what happened. There's Daniel, the seeming leader of the house. There's Rafe, the father of the dead child. There is Justin, the scaredy cat kid. And there's Abby. So you're right. There are 4, but I haven't gotten to know them well. And it's hard to be drawn in this late when you're right. We want to get wrapped up in the Woods case, which is the Katie Devlin murder. And even though it felt like we didn't spend much time there, the time we did spend there I thought was really good with Sandra Scully. Didn't you? Didn't you like these scenes with terrible Rob? Oh, my goodness. What is he doing with his social life?
They were the highlights of the show. If it hadn't have been for them, my score would have been a lot lower. It was confusing with the students. I mean, there's one scene when Rafe and the other boy,
Justin,
are going to go, appear to sleep together or something. Mm-hmm. The next minute you find out that Rafe's the father of Lexie's baby.
Right.
So I know he could be bisexual and everything, but none of it really seemed to make sense. And at one stage, Justin was going to say, almost give the game away, but then just by coincidence, the others all walked out, and so he had to stop talking.
No, Bagga, you were saying it so much. What I love about the sentence you just said is Cassie / undercover Lexie, they're out at the pub. She has gone outside to write down the license plate number of this character we'll talk about in a bit. Justin's outside. He's about to give up the game. That's exactly how you phrased it. But of course, are we even really sure what the game is? We know that the motorway is being blocked, theoretically, by these people living in this house, these students. And that frustrates people in the village, theoretically. But how did Lexie fit into this? Was Lexie put undercover by the motorway people to get into this house and find a way to break them up so that the motorway could go through? I can't believe that what seems to be in the middle of nowhere, the motorway's like, we've got to drive through your house. 5 college students, please allow us to drive through your house.
Yeah, and I can't understand if they had offered each of them £200,000 or whatever the check was. I find it hard to believe that all 4 students would say, no thanks. I think they might have all taken the money. But then again, surely the motorway could have just done a little detour around.
Exactly. You would assume it. Maybe Daniel and his family not only own this house, but they own so much land that at a certain point the motorway couldn't. See, here we are. We're just speculating. We need somebody to give up the ghost. That's definitely what we need. Listeners, we are part of Double P Media, and you can talk to us. If you're frustrated with this episode, as we slightly were, or if you're frustrated with us being frustrated and you really enjoyed episode 6, we want you to join us. Tell us your thoughts. That's what we care about. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at DoublePHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P, then the letters HQ for headquarters, at DoublePHQ. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/DoublePHQ. We really want to talk to you. We are trying to be our own detectives on these cases, but of course, these detectives end up in bad scenarios. So we may be drinking on the job. We may be fooling around with our landlord, where, boy, we'll get to that in a second. But we can't do it without you. You are the chief Varys, and we're your terrible detectives. So reach out and talk to us.
That's a whole book, the likeness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like a big, thick book if you see it in a bookstore.
Yeah. it must be a lot of stuff that's being cut out to be, well, I assume it's going to finish next episode or over the next 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to go on to a next season or anything, but at this stage it looks like it's going to finish very soon, that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There must be a lot of stuff that's been left out, which probably explains a lot more. But now I'm thinking, well, but do I want to read it? Because basically that story has now been spoiled, will be spoiled by the time the show's finished.
Now, Bagga, that certainly seems like a probability. Let's say we don't know if it's a for sure thing to happen. This show could be stretching out over 2 seasons, and so there's a chance that this likeness case will stretch out. Listeners, if you've read the likeness, we don't want any spoilers. I'm still engaged with the show, even if I'm down on this episode, and I'm still wanting to figure out this mystery. Please write to us, though, and just, without spoilers, tell us if this is the likeness, if you feel like important parts are being cut out. You can't tell us what those are, but still, we want to hear from you at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. Bagga, I feel like this podcast has begun a bit too negative. I think we need to go a bit positive, so why don't we focus on the Katie Devlin case, what we like to refer to as the In the Woods case, and let's start there. Is that okay?
Katie Devlin, who is she? Oh, that's right, she got murdered, didn't she? Yes.
Well, some people, including, I think, our lead detective, really aren't focused on Katie at all. It doesn't appear to be.
Let's just say that, as I mentioned last week, his whole idea of investigating is all about the 1985 case. And even when he gets the ripped-up check that he's supposed to be finding out the details from Cassie, he hasn't done anything to it. He hasn't looked up. He tells O'Kelly that, it's just a paper trail and nothing. And he's not doing anything about it. He's too busy with his 1985 case.
Bagga, you are so wise. That's exactly what I thought. That's the only way you can read it. Here, he's got a lead in the Katie Devlin case, possibly, in that, okay, this is the person who has been leaving terrible, threatening messages on Jonathan Devlin's phone. We have tracked down and we've finally found this person. After weeks of looking for this person, we've found him. Yep. Rob seems totally uninterested in that.
And it's not only the Katie case, it's also a connection to the case that Cassie is on at the moment because she got the check.
Mm-hmm, exactly right.
The connection between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
You think they'd have everybody working on it basically because that's a connection between 2 separate cases and possibly, who knows, whether it's connected to the 1985 case.
Bagga, once again, I'm just going to tip my cap to you. That's exactly right. It could be the solution to both of the cases they're working on, and Rob doesn't care. And I love that you mentioned that it does tie to the Cassie case. So Rob should care. The episode begins with Rob. He has been sleeping with his landlady, Heather, again, but he's really thinking of Cassie. Cassie, in 1985, admittedly, are consuming Rob's thoughts. And so here, even if he doesn't think that this person making the threatening calls to Jonathan Devlin, if he doesn't really believe it's tied to the case at all, he believes it's more likely that if he finds Shane Waters and solves the 85 case, it'll solve the Kitty case. He still has to do it, but he isn't doing it, and it's very, very frustrating. The next thing we see him do is go to this Sandra Scully residence, and I've talked about her character an awful lot, and what is very interesting is I think it's possible you found out, Sandra Scully's working at this ballet school where Katie was a dancer, and you start thinking, is she a suspect? Based on what we've seen so far and the horrific event that happened to Sandra in 1985, I don't feel like she should really be a subject anymore. And Rob is not especially nice to her like he should be. He really needed Cassie when he went to see her, and he didn't have Cassie, and I think he kind of blew it entirely.
Well, with Cassie there, Cassie was always the one that's been bringing him back into line, using the calming words when needed, asking the soft questions. But Rob just tends to just go, Carl made you pregnant, didn't he? You know, it's like,
yes. Oh, my Lord.
Where'd that come from? You know, calm down. And
right. And so he's just going so hard. He's using the wrong touch. So he shows her the picture of the character I like to call Carl Mills, or Cahal Mills, whatever you pronounce the bearded bastard's name. You show him the photo, and he's like, is it possible he's the man in the French blue tracksuit? And of course, they look nothing alike. She's like, they look nothing alike. He's like, was Carl ever sexually inappropriate with Jamie Rowan, one of the kids who went missing in 85? This is just ridiculous. He keeps asking her what happened to those kids in 85. And after the third time she said she doesn't know, and she's kind of screaming she doesn't know, why doesn't Rob believe her? Rob has now remembered that she was sexually assaulted back in 1985. She would tell the truth if it would get Cahal and his cronies in prison. But the fact she's not saying it, come on, Rob, wise up.
Yeah, it's like he's not listening to things that he doesn't want to hear. He's got this, horses have blinkers on, you know, that's all he can see and hear is what he wants to hear. And as soon as someone says something else, he just ignores it and keeps on the line that he keeps going for. And he's so determined that Carl is going to be the murderer of Katie and possibly something to do with the disappearance of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even looking at anything else. It's all in his head.
Bagga, I 100% agree. I think there is a way that if he had done this with a light touch, if he had played more to her emotions. This is somebody who, once again, was sexually assaulted, possibly, based on the evidence, probably raped. If he had just hadn't approached it so hard, it could have been okay. Now, I keep mentioning how Rob is doing it wrong, and I'm sure the frustration is in my voice, but this is still a good scene. This is what's funny. This is tense, and I'm getting frustrated with Rob, but I kind of think I'm supposed to, and so this is a very enjoyable part of the episode. Oh,
yeah. Look, I know that Rob's doing just about everything wrong all through the bits that we see of him, but that's what I want to see. I want to see him frustrated. I want to see him trying to get people to talk. I just wish he had Cassie alongside him to work his way through things a bit easier.
I am so much with you. So let's talk about another thing that could be driving Rob up the wall, that could be breaking Rob down, and that is Alicia Rowan. She's the mother of Jamie Rowan, who went missing in 1985. She keeps calling, saying, look into Adam, look into Adam. They've told her that Adam's dead, and she looks Rob in the face, not realizing that's Adam. She goes, Adam's mom lied about him. She's always lied for him. Adam got to grow up, move away, have a life, and he's forgotten all about them. Now, if she only knew, Adam has not forgotten all about them. Adam seems obsessed with them. Adam did get a life, but it isn't the greatest life right now, and he's in deep doo.
Yeah, I actually thought when they first started talking together that she was going to sort of half recognise him or something in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't. I just thought, she's going to know who he is, but as it turned out, she didn't. But yeah, she is so focused on Adam, and she's so sure that either Adam killed the kids or at least knows what happened to the kids. You know, but then again, it's the 1985 story. I mean, is anyone working on the Katie story?
Wait, who? This is, listeners, we are obviously just joking based on the story we're being told. A young girl being murdered is not laughing matter. What is slightly comical is how it is completely fallen behind the scenes. And it's fallen behind the scenes. Our lead investigator, Rob, is down in the police storage area, and he's laying his childhood clothes on top of himself, laying down, trying to be taken back to that night, to have a breakthrough, to remember something about that night. He does remember Carl was chasing them. Theoretically, Carl maybe saw that they had seen what he had done to Sandra Scully. We have little clues like that, but he is just not doing well. Now, he does have one bit of good news. Man Crush, Garda Phelan, Officer Phelan, has found Shane Waters. Cha-ching!
Yeah, I was going to mention Man Crush before because he's one of the people that I've missed seeing. Not because I've got a man crush on him, but because it's quite funny seeing him having the man crush on Rob.
It is. I actually like him as a character, too. I want him to have more to do. He's out there doing good work. He spotted Shane, theoretically, looking at video for something completely different, but because he's able to keep that thought in the back of his head, he was able to do it. I really like that a lot. We know these characters. I keep saying that in this storyline, the In the Woods storyline, it feels like we really know them. Why? Because we've had close to 5, if you remove some of the likeness stuff, there's still close to 5 episodes of information about them, seeing them in action, so it really feels like we know them.
Yeah, exactly. And even smaller characters, well, I suppose they're smaller, like Quigley, for example, and I've even got to like him, and at first I thought he was just going to be in the background, but, he's had more and more to do and more to say, and, I'm quite happy when he comes on screen now, so...
Yeah, we like this crew. I think we love, even if they don't always get along, I think we like this Dublin Murder Squad.
And, of course, with Varys there, Paul Sam, Varys does say, if you find a way to help me flick, I have to change that from another word, find a way to help me flick up Mackie, you can sit on my lap and I'll give you a sweetie. And I thought, isn't that nice?
Chief Varys, as I like to call him, he is great. He is wonderful. We need more of him. Get him and Officer Phelan out of the office on some part of this case. I love it. Now, another thing he said, which was great. Okay, we've had the breakthrough. We've seen Shane Waters, this person who seems to be homeless, seems to have had mental difficulties. We've seen him on a videotape. This is a great break. And Varys quickly says, this whole thing is just speculation. The real option here is tracing down that phone number that Cassie Maddox presented us to, like we talked about before.
Yep.
Rob doesn't get it. He goes out drinking. He goes out to a club. Let's go philosophical for a bit. He keeps thinking about Cassie. Does Rob love Cassie? What do you think, Bagga?
I think he does, because there have been a few times since they've gone their separate ways where he's thought about her. And when he eventually sees his landlady and pushes the landlady's dancing friend out of the way and then takes her outside for a bit of rumpy-bumpity, he is thinking about Cassie the whole time he's doing it. What's the go with his shoulder? All of a sudden he collapses holds his shoulder. Is that something I've missed at all?
Bagga, I'm wonderful that you mentioned this. I haven't noticed it yet either. Is this possibly an old injury he had in 85 that's psychologically coming to the front? Is it these women keep hitting him and so he's had collateral damage?
Everyone hits him on the same shoulder at the same spot.
Right.
I suppose at some stage we'll find out what the reasoning behind it is, because it seems to I'm not sure if it's dislocating or if he's got some sort of a wound or something, but all of a sudden it goes and it's like he can't move his neck and his head and his shoulder, and then he collapses on the dance floor, and I have to say the security guys that carry him out don't particularly do a good job of supporting his head or his shoulder or anything.
Hell no. Bagga, I want to say that I think he does love Cassie, too. I think that's the clues we would have to take as detectives watching this show. It doesn't seem like a healthy love because Rob may not love himself. Rob is messed up in the head. And so I do wonder, and listeners, I always ask you to talk to us, but here I'll give you some discussion points, and I want you to tell me yay or nay. Does Rob love Cassie? And should we want them as viewers to end up as a couple? We know Cassie really seemed to have a crush on Rob. She hasn't mentioned him in a bit, so she may be over it based on his terrible behavior. But Rob is coming to realize he really cares about Cassie. Should we want them to end up together? Write to us at double PHQ, the word double, the single letter P, then the letters HQ for headquarters, at double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/double PHQ. I might even tweet and Instagram this out so we can get people to tell us what they think. Bagga, do you want Rob and Cassie to end up as a couple?
Yes, I do. One of the first scenes we see in this episode, which we glossed over, was Cassie's aunt, who was, I assume, cancer or something, but was very sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back in a year before the show is set, in 2004, exactly. She's passing away.
And she did mention that she should have let Cassie have Lexie as a friend. And then she said something interesting, because she said that getting the priest here, God forgive me for that. Which makes me sort of wonder, was Cassie abused by the priest at all?
Yeah, you wonder.
Like a great thing to say. And is that why Cassie keeps everyone at arm's length apart from Rob? And then when her aunt dies and she's moving out, Rob's the only one there to help. That shows how close they are. It's just Rob and Cassie. There's no other friends. It's just those two.
No, these are great points. Rob was there for her. These guys used to have a great partnership. It's really rocky. Now, I love that you're bringing it back to the first scene in this episode. I almost feel like we may need to go back to the first scene in the very first episode, which seemingly is still to happen in the future, where Rob is down in the basement crying about maybe the ones who die are the lucky ones and the survivors are the ones cursed. And Cassie's like, I never want to speak to you again. So, boy, this couple's going to really have to do some work to get to be together.
Just talking about that scene, when I first watched that, I actually thought one of them was in prison.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, well, I assumed he was in prison and he was confessing to something or something. And then when she just sort of got up and, I think she got up and walked out or something, I can't remember exactly how the scene ended, but I was wondering, what's this got to do with the rest of the story? Because then we found out that they were both police people who are working together on cases. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen that's going to lead to that? So,
Bagga, the only difference I had is I thought, yeah, it is caged, but I thought maybe based on subsequent episodes that maybe it's just he's down in the evidence area, and that's why there's a gate or a jail-like feel to it. It's like, okay, here's the evidence we got to keep locked up. But if they can get together in season one, it might be tough in these final two episodes. Maybe if like one saves the other, that could do it. But we may be looking at season two if we're going to have a happy ending for these two.
Yes, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I suppose we're assuming there'll be a season two.
I have to be honest, I don't know how the ratings were in England, where it's already aired on BBC. Here in America, on the Starz cable television channel, it's been doing pretty well. In fact, I saw a tweet recently which said it looks like, if you had to guess based on these ratings, that it would get renewed for a second season. So we'll have to see.
Would they go on to the following books, or would they continue the story, or not necessarily the same story, but the same characters? Because you could easily do more shows just with the same characters, because they're great characters.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I think so. The question is, and we only have 2 episodes left, is that how far will they get in these novels that they're adapting? If they plan to make a second season and kind of leave these novels early, I could see that happening. Or it may be hard to kind of squint your eyes and see it. Maybe they could, rush the plot real quick and finish in 2 episodes. We will have to see. I guess as we leave the Katie Devlin case / 1985 case, Bagga, with 2 episodes left, who are your prime suspect or suspects in Katie's death and or the missing children from 1985? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough because there was very little about those cases. Katie's story, well, did we learn anything about Katie in this episode? I don't think we really did.
Well, how about this? Since the only person we really spent any time with, any suspects we spent time with, is Sandra Scully. Are you more or less suspicious of her? And I would say, Rob, are you more or less suspicious of him? How do you feel about those 2 after episode 6?
I would say that Sandra Scully is pretty much innocent. I'd say she's had her bad moment back in the forest in 85.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she would have gone on to do anything since then. I can't see her. If she was going to kill anyone, she would have killed one of the boys.
And we would have been fine with it. We're like,
yes, he's asking for it, so yeah, that would have been fine. Rob is another kettle of fish altogether. He's got a temper, and although I can't see him killing Katie, but then again, he probably was too young to do anything to the two other kids.
Right. We have no indication that Rob had ever heard of Katie before this case came up. Now, of course, he did know her father. You know, sometimes I think we've been pointing the finger at Sandra Scully as if to get back at these bastards, did she kill her ex-boyfriend Jonathan's kid? Is it possible that could be a similar motive for Rob? Once again, we're not given too many motives per se, but could that be it? Big thing still to learn.
I didn't know that Jonathan married Margaret until later on, until he started investigating, from what we saw anyway.
Right. If we can trust Rob's knowledge that we've seen so far, and trusting Rob is probably the silliest thing anybody should do. But if we could, that is definitely part of the questions. Well, why don't we take a ride down the still not finished motorway down to the likeness case and get back to our present, where Frank is watching the house, the housemates are making breakfast, and undercover Cassie, as imitation Lexie, is there. She's getting breakfast. And even though I've been so tough on this episode, little moments even in these scenes are good. So they're like, hey, yeah, there's your breakfast. Just grab a fork and you'll be good to go. And Cassie has to walk up to these drawers and go, which ones are the forks in again? Hopefully she was trained this. Maybe she just guessed, but she found the right drawer. She got a fork.
Everybody was watching her too. I know at least Abigail was watching, and she did tend to just hesitate for those few seconds before she opened it.
Well, I'm not sure there's much evidence, but do you think at this point, we know by the end of the episode, these four roommates think that this Lexie is an imitation Lexie. And so we know that. Do you think they were suspecting her at this point?
Well, I think at least one of them would, because I assume one of them killed the original Lexie.
Right.
So one of them, or maybe two, I'm not sure actually, one or two could easily know that she's not the real Lexie, but aren't letting on because maybe the other two don't know. So, but there hasn't been anything to give us any information, any way at all. We're talking about Lexie. We mentioned last week that she was watching a video, and from what we saw, the only bit of the video that where Lexie talked was when she said, "We're all going to die." And from that, somehow she's managed to piece together Lexie's whole personality, which seems a bit weird to me. Like she knows exactly what Lexie would do and say, and just doesn't read real. Obviously, that's a lot of the stuff that's probably been cut out of the book. But maybe she learned a lot of stuff, I guess. But I couldn't say left, right, and centre who's guilty. They all look guilty to me.
And they all may be guilty at this point. Who's to say? Now, the one bit of insight we're given into them happens at this beginning scene. I can't remember which one, but one says, hey, should we go to class? Should we do this? And Daniel seemingly makes a decision for all five of them. No, I thought we won't go to class. We'll just hang out here together. And it's like, well, this guy can just decide for everybody? Okay. And that makes me dislike Daniel. I don't know much about Daniel, but I really dislike him.
Yeah, he does seem to be in control of everything. What, grandparents' house or something originally?
Yes. Yes, that's what I believe, is it was his family's house originally, but for some reason, which I don't think we know yet, now the house is owned by all the tenants.
Yeah, it's strange.
So Cassie says she can't remember. So she's trying to do her job as an undercover officer. She's like, man, I just can't remember what happened to me. Where were you guys when I was stabbed? The cops told me you were playing pokers. And when she says this, they all make faces like, oh, yeah. And they don't say anything. They all clam up. They're like, Yeah, mm-hmm.
Couldn't have been more guilty looking.
Right, what great roomies. So what were you guys doing when I was stabbed? What's for dinner?
Yeah, I just expected one to say, I still can't get this blood off my hand or something like that.
Yeah, I was down washing this tree for DNA evidence.
The thing about Cassie is that she was supposedly just stabbed, millimeters from her heart.
Mm-hmm.
No point when she's walking or anything does she go, oh, I'm a bit sore there.
Right.
I've had a paper cut that's lasted for weeks. and
Sorry to laugh.
She is stabbed in the chest, and in a few days she's ready to go again. It seems a bit unlikely to me.
How about this? Let's say it's been 2 weeks or whatever since she was stabbed. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Even 2 weeks later, Cassie in this episode runs somebody down when the person throws the rock through the window. She chases them down and tackles them. You don't think somebody with internal bleeding and damage like that would be able to do that 2 weeks, a month later? Give me a break.
And my first thought was, isn't she showing she's a policewoman by chase this person down?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the original Lexie would have been like, and I can't imagine the original Lexie would have chased down someone like that as obvious as that, because she just looked like a policewoman the way she did it.
Yeah, no, completely.
I think that was a mistake. I think she should have laid back and let the others chase, especially if she's got a stab wound, as you say, because I'm sure after all that running and jumping on that would have started bleeding again.
You would think. Now, I should point out, perhaps we found out maybe not so much about all the other characters, but I think we're finding out something about the imitation Lexie who was killed. She kept going out on walks. This was part of her routine. She would go out on an evening walk. Later on, when she goes out on this evening walk, she runs into a character who we've seen in a couple episodes before. This person who has been making the threatening phone calls to Jonathan Devlin, a character who I think was named Terrence in that first episode. So I'm going to go ahead and run with Terrence. Hopefully that's not a clue of any sort. But Terrence, back in episode 3, we saw him make the threatening calls. Then later, get this, later on in episode 3, this guy comes from the pub out to his car, which Lexie is in, and says, hey, there are a lot of cops here asking questions. The person who came out of the pub and went to the car, it was the rock thrower John. Oh, my goodness. So Lexie is an imitation Lexie. She was undercover. She was working somehow to help this crew on the motorway, and she kept leaving the house. And theoretically, on one of her walks, somebody got her. It doesn't seem to be Terrence. He has a good crack after Cassie says, oh, I need more money before I'm going to go through with this. And Terrence says, yeah, no wonder somebody stabbed you.
She doesn't own the house by herself. So why are they giving her money to sell her portion? Because the other people would still have to sell the house unless she has to try and convince them to sell. I don't know. They didn't really explain that very well.
Right. We don't know, as you keep saying, give up the ghost, give up the story. We don't know what it is. Tell us what's happening, show. But it feels like, okay, and I have to go into speculation myself. Here, Chief Aries is going to yell at me because I'm speculating. But it feels like, okay, you need this property, which is owned by the people in this house, to make the motorway. So you somehow get somebody in undercover into the house. Boy, that's a real question how you do it. You get them using a fake identity, which already exists as a fake identity. Well, maybe this is the thought, and it makes no sense. Maybe if you were to get pregnant by one of them, then you would be like, listen, we're going to have a kid. We need some money. Let's sell it to this motorway company. Now, that's still only 2 of the 5. It's hard to speculate exactly what was going on. Very, very tricky.
Maybe they're going to do it once and then try again to try to get Abigail pregnant, and that would leave one person left, and then this person lots of money. No, I don't understand it. As we said earlier, surely just, unless, as you said, they own lots of land, surely just a little bypass around the house would have been a lot easier than everything that they're going through.
Oh, yeah. That becomes the question. Cassie has to solve so many things, and one of the things she has to solve is what was Imitation Lexie up to. So far, I don't think we can say. At dinner, Cassie once again tries to stir the pot. She's like, hey, what's going on, guys? What's going on? Even she's trying to get them to talk about, she's like, hey, are we going to do this for the rest of our lives? And instead of stirring the pot to reveal their secrets, instead she stirs the pot to reveal her fake identity to these housemates. Justin, the nervous one, he notes, he goes, hey, I put onions in the stew, but you're not gagging. Cassie is busted. She's got to leave the house immediately. Come on.
Yeah, and she tries to get away with saying that she was just... Oh, what's the correct expression she was saying?
Oh, something about, the penicillin, or all these drugs are making the onions okay. Very suspicious.
Just having a go at you or something like that. But anyway, yeah, she tries to get away with it, but you can see everybody's reaction is like, we don't believe a word you're saying.
No, exactly. How about this? If Lexie, the imitation Lexie who was killed, really didn't like onions, they never would have put it in the stew to begin with. If they believed it was her, this is like a test. Hey, let's put onions in this stew and see if she mentions it like she always did.
Yeah, they're pretty sure it's not her.
It feels like it, yeah. Now, I don't know the Irish gun laws, but the fact that the guy I hate the most, Daniel, has a gun, that seems to be a big, SpaghettiOs, big trouble moment.
And not only does he have a gun, but he points it at the rock thrower.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Runs away, and he keeps pointing it at Lexie for a few seconds before he moves it.
Yeah, so not good.
For a second, you're thinking, oh my God, he's going to shoot her. But I don't know why he didn't, to be honest. If he thought that she's not the real person. But then they want to know who she is, I guess.
Right. Wouldn't you? These house guests, they may not be guilty of murder, and they may be terrible people, but if I suspected, once again, that somebody moved into my house pretending to be my friend, I would freak the F out. Give me a break.
Yeah, definitely. You'd want to know why they're there, who they are, and how they look so identical. Are they sisters, or... I mean, the chances of finding someone that quick who looks identical would be pretty slim, so, you'd assume that must be an identical twin or something that somebody knew about.
Right. Now, we haven't talked much about Rafe, and I want to say my own internal thought process on this. The first time Cassie's like, I'm going to go for a walk, and everybody's like, wait, are you serious? You got stabbed doing a walk. And then she goes, well, why don't we all go on a walk together? Rafe, when he's on the walk, I wrote in my notes, Rafe shouldn't be the killer if he's whining about stepping in dog dew on this walk.
Yeah, he's not the outdoor type, is he?
No, he's also squeamish, obviously. If you got blood all over you stabbing somebody, then you're going to say, oh, wait, ooh, yuck, I stepped in this dog dew. Give me a break. But, of course, Rafe does have some signs that would point to him. One of the first things we learn, you mentioned it, it implies that Rafe and Justin are in a relationship. But one thing we know is that Justin believes Rafe is using again, based on what we've seen, some of the signals later, using cocaine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and drinking a lot as well.
And Rafe is the father of the child. If he's in a relationship with Justin, how could he be the father of the child? Unless he's bisexual and goes both ways. I guess I answered my own question there, but very intriguing.
It seems very strange, and it just seems like, as we said all through this podcast, that we just don't know these people. But Daniel doesn't seem like he's the sort of person who would be hanging out with a couple of losers like Rafe and Justin.
No, that's a great point. They don't seem like they would be compatible as friends, even.
No. I don't know why he would have brought them all in and signed them all up to own the house. It just, maybe it's a control thing. Maybe he likes to control situations. It just seems a bit strange.
Now let's look at Abby, who, just because of my natural inclination, if she's the friendly one, that always raises my suspicion antenna. She has some weirdness as well. We see her flirting on the couch with Daniel, acting like a couple on the couch with Daniel. Later on, Abby climbs into bed with Cassie. Cassie wakes up and tells Abby, I thought a pretty good cover story. I'll give Cassie her due on this. She tells Abby the baby didn't make it. Then Cassie asks if the guys know, and Abby says no.
Yeah. It's strange because, if I woke up and there was someone of the same sex in bed with me, I think I might have freaked out a little bit.
But you can't freak out because maybe this is a common occurrence. That's how little you know about imitation Lexie, Cassie.
Exactly. But what if that had never happened before and it was a test by Abigail and Abigail's thinking, well, she hasn't reacted. That's a bit weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It feels like this whole episode is these roommates testing Cassie to see if she's real.
Yeah.
Abigail is at the supermarket. They're all at the supermarket, but Abigail specifically is at the supermarket when Cassie is confronted by this woman who confessed or turned her boyfriend in way back in episode 1, this person named Alana Shore, who a couple episodes ago was threatening Cassie, like, hey, I'm getting beat up for testifying against my man by his sisters. You got to protect me. You got to protect me. And attacks Cassie again right now.
This is a mean thing to say, but all I could think when I saw her, how awful she looked, was maybe she should hook up with Sam.
That is so. Why would you say that? Why?
Because they're both having it so hard.
Right, they can commiserate together. Cassie later tells Abby, it's good I lost the baby. Abby says no, Daniel would have been very happy. Huh?
Yeah.
Is there any proof that Daniel and Lexie were in a relationship? I can't tell. Cassie's making so many assumptions. It's difficult.
I haven't seen any proof. There hasn't been any sort of connection that you'd say, oh, look, they're secretly in love, or, they had an affair or something. It doesn't seem that. I know there's a photo early on where somebody said that Daniel was looking at Lexie, although Abigail was looking at Daniel. But apart from that, there hasn't been any proof that anything has happened at all.
Cassie should be faking memory loss. Like, okay, I was stabbed, I lost a lot of blood, I'm having trouble remembering things. Maybe that could have helped her cover some of the obvious flubs that she does in this episode.
Yeah, I actually thought the same thing. Rather than saying things like, oh, that's just like you, Rafe, I'd be saying things like, oh, I just can't seem to remember what it was like before, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems like she's trying too hard, perhaps.
Although I'm not sure memory loss is tied to blood loss at all, you were stabbed close to the heart. The non-guilty people in this party, if there are any, of course they all may be guilty, but if any of them aren't guilty, they would be more willing to accept you if you went with that kind of ruse, as opposed to just pretending, hey, I'm back to normal and I'm healthier than I've ever been as I run and tackle people who throw rocks through our window.
I didn't even understand why the guy would throw a rock through the window in the first place.
We'll burn you out.
Why didn't he just go ahead and light a fire and try to burn them out?
Yeah, start with the fire.
Yes, up the fire. The big house, they'll get out eventually.
Mm-hmm. Now, this John Naylor, the person who threw the rock, the brick with the note on it, he gets pulled in. You're talking about Sam having a tough time. Think of how poor Detective Sam has to put up with this son of a gun singing his tunes, and oh my goodness gracious. So this John Naylor rock thrower, he says that those kids are blocking the motorway, which is going to provide money and jobs, yada, yada, yada. And he points out, hey, there's a gun there. Lexie lies to Frank and says there wasn't a gun. Does Frank, and this is the way I read it, Frank knows Lexie's lying and he's willing to go with it because he loves her being undercover. Ooh, Frank!
Yeah, I got that feeling. I got that feeling that he knew she was lying, but all he cares about is solving the case.
He doesn't even seem to care too much about his daughter, who comes on a stakeout with him.
Yes.
This is one, little nod I'll give to everybody who's read these Tana French books. The fact that we're meeting Frank and that we're meeting Frank's daughter, Holly, let's just say they play roles in future novels in this Dublin Murder Squad series. So good to see her. I'm sure people who've read those later books are really happy to see little Holly joining us in this insanity.
And I like how she does say, when Cassie gets in the car, she says, "Hi, Cassie." And then her dad says, "Put your earphones on." "Oh, yes, Dad." And puts on.
What a great kid.
Yeah, I'm used to these stakeouts. That's all right.
Now, Justin is cracking. You've mentioned him. Justin, we need to point the finger at him for a bit if we haven't already, but it doesn't feel like I know him very much other than he is the Shane Waters of this group. Back in 85, Shane was kind of the weak-willed person who was trying to say, let's not do this, that kind of stuff. And perhaps Justin is the same person in this crew. He seems weak-willed. He runs out of the pub when he gets in a fight with these roomies. And it did feel like for half a second Cassie was going to get him to give up the ghost. But suddenly everybody comes outside. Maybe they don't trust Justin alone with this imitation Lexie. And so Justin doesn't get a chance to shine.
I just want to point out a timeline issue, a problem that I had with this.
Okay.
They've all just they've all just sat down at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Lexie has just had a go at the guy Rob that she's scarred, and the guy that she knows and she pretends not to.
Uh-huh.
She says, the guy walks out. She jumps up and says, "I'm going out for a smoke." She hasn't even got a beer or anything.
Mm-hmm.
She's straight out the door. Then Justin's straight out the door straight after her.
Yep.
And then within less than a minute, the others are all out the door. What was the point of going to the pub? Because they obviously didn't stay too long.
Yes, the trip to the pub is, what do you think, 5 times longer than the amount of time they spent in the bar? What's going on here?
Yes, I've never seen somebody sit down and say, "I'm going out for a smoke," just after they sat down at a pub. It's enough time for Justin to get into a fight, be so upset to come out.
Yeah. How about this? I'm at least glad that back in 2005, they were making smokers step outside as opposed to being able to smoke in the pub. Good work, small Irish village.
Yes, exactly. Although, we don't know if they were making them do that. Maybe she just did it on her own, which makes it even more suspicious.
Well, she was doing it in this specific case just to go get that license plate number, but still, get those smokers out away from us. Secondhand smoke's a killer, people.
And just when we thought that Rob was the only one that smoked, she smokes as well.
That's why they need to be back together so they can share these cigs. She can bum a fag and say, "Hey, let me smoke that."
Yep. Just have one packet between them and take it in turns.
This is the end of the episode. And let me say that once again, I'm so tough on this storyline. But as soon as they were offering her a drink, I thought to myself, Cassie, do not drink this drink. Whatever you do, do not drink this drink. But she did. Her head starts spinning, and it's revealed all 4 of them standing over her, saying, "Who the F are you?" That is a great, tense, terrible moment for Cassie right there. I did enjoy that little bit there at the end.
Yeah, I just would have enjoyed it more if we knew more about the story and the people in it. Not knowing the other 4 characters. It just, I don't know. That scene was very strong, but the rest of the scenes with them had been just annoying because I wanted to get back to Rob and all those guys. So, but that was a good ending, very good ending.
And for everybody who's later able to binge these episodes, I'm sure that'll be great.
Dying to see what happens, or how she survives, if she survives next week. Well, we're going to have to wait and see. And Rob gets a breakthrough on Katie's killer.
Could Shane Waters actually come through? Give us some good news, Shane.
Well, he's got to do something. He can't spend the entire series just writing "He rises" on the signs.
Everybody's got to have a hobby.
Yes, that's true. What does he live on? I've often thought that. He's travelling, just walking from sign to sign to write "He rises." What is he living on?
He's living on the dole.
Living on the dole? Yeah. you think it'd be easy to find then, because surely they just have to look up his dole, see where the money's going.
Hey, that is a great point.
I should be a detective.
You are Detective Bagga. Detective Bagga, I was mentioning Frank a second ago. How about this? Are you on Team Frank, Undercover Cop Frank, or on Chief Very's team, Dublin Murder Squad? Which one, if you had to work for one of these two bosses, which one would you work for?
Oh, Varies. Every day of the week, I'd go with Varies.
You don't mind the possible constant curse words?
No, I think the things he comes out with, I think, would make me maybe not laugh in front of him, but and I think I'd probably laugh a lot about the things. But I think you also know where you stand with him. I think with Frank.
I think Frank will love you as long as you put your life at risk and love doing undercover.
Yeah, that's basically true. He just wants the case solved, and if it ends up that you get killed, but the case gets solved, he'll be happy with that.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's another life, but I've got my case solved, so on to the next one.
Exactly right. That we're clearing that off the board. Next, any final thoughts on episode 6 and or looking forward to the next two?
The next two, I am looking forward, first of all, to see, for the first time, I'm actually interested to see what's going to happen with Cassie and these 4 students because of the way the episode finished. Because for the first time, there is something there that's interesting. We're either going to find out who killed Lexie or we're going to find out something for sure. Also dying to know how Rob is going to come across something that's going to help him with his case for Katie, because he hasn't been looking for anything for Katie for a long time, so he's obviously going to stumble across something, or somebody's going to give him a bit of information about something. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We will have to see. I'm not sure either. Once again, I read the first novel, In the Woods, and I know how that one ends. I have not read The Likeness. How are they going to tie these stories up? How are Cassie and Rob going to come back together? We shall have to see. Now, we're going to end this episode the way we end every episode of Irish Craic, with an Irish saying that'll brighten your day and, sure enough, put a skip in your step. Bagga, have you ever heard the phrase, your son is your son today, but your daughter is your daughter forever?
I think my mum said that to me the day I was born, so I'm sure she said that.
Well, according to the article I'm reading, a man is only a son until he takes a wife. But a daughter, as she gets older, she will stay near the family, draining it of money and time for years to come. What?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So let's say it one more time. Your son is your son today, but your daughter is your daughter forever. Oh, my goodness. That's a great Irish saying. If you know any other Irish sayings, listeners, please write to us at Irish Craic, at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/PHQ.
Actually did a bit of homework for once, and this is, I can't fix my car. It's completely banjaxed.
Wahawa? Well, it means if you can't fix your car and it's been banjaxed, it's totaled, it's pointless, it's a wreck. What is it?
Well, they say it's extremely tired, but yeah, they basically mean it's had it. But another one,
yeah,
is even black hens lay white eggs.
Now, what does that mean?
Seemingly bad people can still do good deeds.
All right, I like that message.
And got another one.
Great.
This week. Don't tell your secret to a fence, because you don't know what's on the other side of the fence.
Oh, my goodness. These those are pretty good. I really like those.
Yeah. You want one more?
Oh, yeah. Come, boy, you're full of them. Keep coming.
Everyone lays a burden on the willing horse.
Everyone lays a burden on the willing horse. Okay. I have no idea what that... Oh, means if... I don't know. Okay, I give up. What does it mean?
It means people are quick to take helpful people for granted.
Oh, okay. I like that too. I think that's good.
And I'll do one more, because this one I think is the best. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end.
That is a great saying. I love it.
Considering all these other weeks I haven't had any, I've got a bunch of them this week.
Love it. Well, this is the end of our podcast. My name's Bubba. You can reach out to me on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And my name's Peter, but you can reach me at Bagga 2007. That's BAGGA 2007.
And we will drug you next time on Irish Crack.
Don't accept drinks from strangers
that you live with.